Yo, hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo, welcome to Wyatt. And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. Hi to all my YouTubers out there. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, just click that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Just click it, click it, click it. I loves to click it. Yeah. Hi, today's Wyatt is one hell of a special treat. Our esteemed guest is Mr. Ernest White II. He's the host and executive producer of Fly Brother, the award-winning travel documentary television series, y'all. So look, let's get down with the storyteller, the explorer, the connector of people. Let's do it right now. Oh, without further ado, Wyatt welcomes the storyteller, the explorer, the connector of peoples, Mr. Ernest White II, the Fly Brother. Talk at me. How the hell are you?
I'm all right, Wyatt. Thank you so much for that exuberant introduction.
Hey, listen, first of all, Ernest, thank you so much for stopping by. Wyatt, I greatly appreciate it. And now, let me tell you something. You know, I always have to do that because for me, it just makes me feel so good. Anyway, I had to do that. I stole that intro from our buddy, Mr. Matt Scholarud, founder and CEO of Pink Media. And I decided to put my own particular spin on it because, recycling is the in thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Even though it also sounded to me like Fire Marshal Bill from In Living Color back in the 90s.
Yeah,
let me show you something.
Exactly.
So, I'm of age.
Yeah, the Fire Marshal definitely was my inspiration. So I'm glad you caught on to that. Anyway, again, thank you so much for being here. Man, you are impressive. You are the host and the executive producer of Fly Brother, the award-winning travel docu-series that airs on PBS and Create TV. It streams on pbs.org and Revry TV. So I believe that Fly Brother is in its, third season?
We are currently filming our third season. We have 2 seasons out, 20 episodes, 10 episodes each season. The first season we filmed between 2017 and 2019. That came out in May of 2020 on PBS stations, on Create TV. And season 2, we filmed over 2.5 months at the height of the pandemic in between April and June 2021. And that came out last year, 2022. And so all 10 episodes are available for streaming. Again, like you said, at pbs.org, as well as Revry TV. That's another kind of Black-centered streaming platform. And then the episodes cycle around all the time on local PBS affiliates as well as Create TV. In fact, in February, Create had a marathon Fly Brother week, where they just show the episodes back to back to back. So, we're excited that people can access them either through television or through streaming services without having to pay.
And also, too, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, PBS did a binge session as well. They played them back to back to back to back.
Yes. Yes, they did.
That's great. Well, tell me, what is the mission of Fly Brother, Ernest? With each episode, what do you accomplish?
Well, in every episode, I visit friends who bring me into their communities, show me what they love about the place, and we show the audience the whole world is our tribe. The series is about friendship and connection. So yes, travel is the catalyst that gets people out into the world, but really what keeps people out in the world, what inspires travel in many different ways is the newness, the ability to be new in a space, to connect with the space, and more importantly, to connect with the people in the space.
Got it. Well, travel can help broaden your perspective and it helps to shape your perception of the world. So I've got 2 quotes here and I would like you please to give your feedback, your take on it. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Quote number 1 from Saint Augustine: "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page." What do you say to that?
Oh, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, there's a bit of synchronicity there. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, originally, which is 30 minutes down the road or up the road from Saint Augustine, Florida. And it's one of those places that you go to as a kid. You go look at the Spanish fort that they built in 1565 to conquer the native populations. But anyway, I think I do agree with the town was named for this particular saint. But I do agree with the sentiment of the quote. I mean, obviously, nowadays with technology, we have ways of traveling without ever leaving home. We have the internet, we have technology, we have virtual experiences. We can order food from different parts of the world to our home. And yet you're still only looking at, let's say you're not just looking at one page if you never leave home, but you're really still just kind of flipping the book around like that, as opposed to actually getting into it. So I still agree wholeheartedly. While it is beautiful that we can have these experiences virtually, and we actually help facilitate virtual connection and travel experiences with Fly Brother and Friends, our membership community, it's still important to actually be out in the world yourself. We go online to get offline. And so therefore, I agree wholeheartedly.
Great. Okay, here is quote number 2 from Lin Yutang. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Here it is. "No one realizes how beautiful it is to travel until he comes home and rests his head on his old familiar pillow."
Say that one more time.
No problem. Here we go.
Okay, I want to pay attention completely this time. I was thinking, did I leave the iron on? I'm joking.
That's okay. That's all right. Here we go. And I really like this one. "No one realizes how beautiful it is to travel until he comes home and rests his head on his old familiar pillow."
Got it. So if I'm understanding the quote, it's saying that it's only when you return home to your day to day that you realize the pleasure and blessings of what travel is all about. I don't necessarily agree with that wholeheartedly, or at least completely, in terms of my life experience. And I say that because you can be very much in the midst of travel and appreciate it. You can be in the midst of the journey, which is kind of, what it's about in life. And sometimes, you're traveling to get away from home, to get away from that ordinary, to get away from the box that you may have created for yourself. Not all the time. I'm just saying that that's a consideration when I hear that kind of a quote. And I'll say only now in this stage of my life do I really, really appreciate the stability and the kind of familiarity of my own home space. For a couple decades, I didn't have that. So, for me, it was about finding the enjoyment and even the safety in the journey. So I would say I wouldn't say I disagree, but it just doesn't align with me as much as or resonate with me as much as the first quote.
Got it. Cool. Okay. Very, very good. Okay, now, my friend, before we really do a deep dive into your stellar career, because I want to be just like you when I grow up.
Oh, you say that knowing nothing about the internal workings of my career.
Well, let's find out a little bit.
Go ahead, Mr. Wyatt Evans. Go ahead. Sure.
Let's try to find out a little bit about that. But before we do, let's travel through the corridors of time so that our audience can learn all about your backstory. So tell us, please, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Pensacola, Florida, but I was raised in Jacksonville. So we got North Florida on lock in terms of my upbringing. And both of my parents were educators. They're both retired now, hanging out in the streets with their friends, just being, active and glamorous in their ways. But raised in a very Southern culture, Southern tradition in the 80s, raised in church, raised in Boy Scouts, raised in community. And I would say that that very much has a bearing on how I travel out in the world, how I engage with people. You know, I had to open my mouth and actually speak to Deaconess Jonathan Young. Didn't you hear Deaconess Jonathan Young talking to you? You know, like that kind of upbringing. I had to learn how to communicate with people who were, you know, perceived to be different than me. In this case, older people or whatever. And then I was also raised with Southern values and manners.
Right.
And so, you know, has carried me very far. Just that upbringing alone, that awareness of other people and that awareness of, you know, my being polite and my being courteous is in no way diminishing who I am as a human being. In fact, that is, you know, what allows me to help build community. And so I definitely attribute, no matter how far I've gone, a lot of my ability to connect with people to a Southern Black upbringing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, being polite and having manners, that's sort of like a lost art these days. So I totally agree with you. Okay. Now, here's my favorite question I like to ask my guests, and here it is. What was Ernest like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like 3 qualities, characteristics that best describe you.
I would say I was a... that's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I was pretty... Well, it's how do I diminish it? How do I distill it to 3 qualities? I guess that's the thing. And also just really kind of considering how I can frame that in a way that's not negative,
Okay.
you know, in a way that's really recognizing strengths that were emerging at the time. I was fat, I was a nerd, and I was, you know, a sissy. So all of those things kind of defined a lot of my experiences as a kid.
Okay.
But as a nerd, I was always searching for knowledge, always searching for story, always searching for ways to maybe engage better with the world that I lived in. I was very much curious as a child. My parents being teachers kind of stoked that. Desire in me. I didn't get fat until I was maybe like 13 or 14 years old. So
Okay.
I was a fat teenager, which is probably the worst time in life if you know, in terms of that being the key time for bullying and all those other things. However, I definitely was very much, I think, a loving kid who was always looking for ways to engage with other people. You know, find ways to like have a good time, to help, you know, educate and articulate things that I was learning and create experiences for others. And some people aligned with it and a lot of people didn't. And so, you know, but when it came to kind of like the origins of the, let's say, Fly Brother, the brand,
Right.
you know, my parents, again, were very big on, as teachers, like if I asked for a book, they would get it for me. So I grew up in a home full of books. I grew up with maps, and I would call the 800 number for airline timetables and posters. And I memorized all the capitals of every country in the world and all that stuff. So yeah, I was that kid that would bring a book to summer camp. And
Like that.
you know, so it definitely, yeah, my childhood was one that was I was an outlier. I'll say that.
Okay.
Still am, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're independent. You follow your own path, and that's really very important. You're a leader as opposed to being a follower. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's fast forward to your career as a journalist and an author. You've been featured in print and online media, including USA Today, Ebony, Time Out London, National Geographic, the travelchannel.com. You're also the senior editor at Panorama, the Journal of Intelligent Travel, and you're the founding editor of the digital men's magazine Abernathy. So a lot of great credits. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I've always been drawn to storytelling. Some of my first love would have been books. And I, as an avid reader, always felt called to write as well. And so I ended up getting my MFA in creative writing from American University in Washington, D.C., and Florida A&M undergraduate degree in political science. So, HBCU in the house. But yeah, I lived in DC for 4 years and was focusing on creative writing. I always wanted to be a novelist. So that was kind of where my creative, trajectory lay. As far as I was concerned. And, in doing so, I would also write a lot of travel narrative, and I was commissioned. I would pitch as I moved out of graduate school into teaching full time. I was a freelance journalist. And so some of that writing would either have been either travel pieces, but a lot of them would be essay, personal essay on my experiences traveling abroad. I started my blog Fly Brother back in 2008, pre-Instagram, and there was a lot of at the time, a lot of women, mostly Black women, writing about travel out of the travel bloggers that were of color. Not very many men. Most of the men that would do a lot of travel stuff, if they were they were like telling people how to hook up overseas, whereas I was writing about my cultural experiences, and I actually stayed away from writing about any hookups that had occurred. And so that was the kind of that was happening concurrently with other writing opportunities. And then eventually I was asked to helm the editorial board at Abernathy, which was a Black men's digital magazine out in the early or mid to late 2000s, and then a few other journals and magazines that no longer are publishing. But that kind of professionalized my writing and got me to a place where I was doing it in for money and with regularity. So yeah, but ever since I still write occasionally as a freelancer whenever I get a commission. Sometimes I was asked to write about a cruise experience to Saudi Arabia for Condé Nast Traveler magazine a few months ago. And then also as I produce other film and television projects, that a lot of that includes writing, either script writing or the writing of storyline and narrative. So I'm still very much a writer. I write the voiceover for Fly Brother, the show. And so there's almost always writing happening.
Amazing. Got it. Okay. Very good. Now let's take to the friendly skies with Fly Brother. Ernest, how did the program come to be?
Well, as I mentioned, I started my travel blog, Fly Brother, many, many moons ago. The focus was on helping to encourage more people of color, more Black people specifically, to do international traveling. At the time, people kind of forget about how different things were not so very long ago. Before there was, I think Instagram came out in 2009. Before that, people were reading travel blogs. And even then, people were, there still hadn't been this big Black travel movement that has since occurred with everybody going off to Dubai taking pictures. None of that was happening at the time. And people still had a lot of misconceptions about international travel. Oh, he must have a trust fund and all these other things. People had no clue. I used my student loan money to travel when I was in graduate school. I valued that more than anything else. I have gone into debt to travel. So, I just would rather do that than spend my money on a flat screen television. Not to say that that's bad, but just saying those were the choices I was making, whereas other people were choosing to do different things. And my point was to just show people the world is open to us. We need to be out here. The world needs to see us. And since then, there's been huge transformation in the travel space. And so that's been beautiful. In the meantime, a buddy of mine from college, from undergrad, approached me and he was like, hey, man, I am now co-owner of a small startup cable network, and we want to commission a travel show from you. You've got a great blog, you got a great look. There's lots of stories that you can tell. We can't pay you, but we can show you all about bringing in advertising, and it'll be a non-exclusive agreement in case you end up selling the show. And I was like, of course not. Television? How very dare you? I write literature.
Oh, well, okay. Okay now. Okay.
Never call me again. Never call me again.
Okay. Well.
Yes, darling. Yes, that's exactly what I said.
Well.
I was like, right. I don't even own a television, as I just said.
Right. You forgo the flat screens to get on the plane. I get it.
Exactly. Flat screen in first class. What are we even talking about here? What
Look, flat screen, travel. Flat screen, I think I'm going to take the travel.
Man, listen, I was totally resistant to it. I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh my God, no, man. And when I tell you every other door in my life closed, when I would just, every conversation, oh, you should be on TV. You should be on TV. I know somebody that can help produce you. You should be on TV. I can invest in you. What? Didn't I just tell you all? Everybody that I write literature, and I don't. The universe was like, don't care. You're gonna do it.
Listen, Mr. White. A quick sidebar here. Look, just a quick sidebar. I mean, really now. That's all I'm gonna say is really now. I mean,
listen.
Go ahead.
I had my vision for what I wanted my life to be, and it wasn't on television.
But
I was going to write novels that I would eventually, maybe turn into films.
Well,
that was how I envisioned what I wanted my life to be about, and probably teach at a university somewhere and live off with my husband and see y'all on the flip side. That was my little quiet life as a librarian in a log cabin on northern Vancouver Island. That was what I was going to do.
Hallmark card. Hallmark. Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
No, that's cool. I totally get it. So let's continue. Okay, so your friend okay, go ahead. Please.
Well, basically, as I said, like, it just got to the point where I was being conked over the head repeatedly by you're doing this, so you can either be dragged or you can go willingly.
Okay.
And so I was dragged, and so I was dragged. Man, and at that point, I would say professionally, I had been working as a journalist for about 15 years, and I had connections already in the travel industry who were able to set us up for trips to come and film. And I met a woman, Dr. Yvette McQueen. She was she is a doctor, Dr. McQueen, beautiful Black woman who was like, I will give you, I love what you're doing. I love what you're creating. I want to help you. And she gave me some seed funding to go film our first episode in Brazil.
It's great.
Right? And then she connected me with a group of lady doctors who invest, Black women, again, and I have to say that because if it was not for Black women, my boy was the one who initially commissioned the show, but it's like the sisters were the ones who showed up with cash, and they were like, no, we support you and we want to help you do this. And I was just like, oh, God. I don't want to do this. And so I had been living in Brazil at the time. I was living in Sao Paulo working for Time Out magazine. I had a good friend who owns a production company, Pedro Serra. And so working with him, he put it together. I was able to pay him a little bit of money. We put a great first episode together. We got a little bit more money from this investment group of Black women doctors. And then as we were in the midst of filming seasons, I made arrangements with some of the destinations where we filmed. I came up with the theme, which was, again, friendship and connection. Okay. That's the thing that was most authentic to me. Right. Because at the time, we're talking about maybe 2015, Bourdain owned food. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really a foodie anyway. I'm a, former fatty. So it was no, I'm not trying to eat everywhere I go. And so it had to be something. People wanted to connect with me on something. And I was like, what really resonates most with me is the fact that when I go places, I'm so blessed to just go deep with people, connect, have a great interaction. And then I'm leaving with new friends. And we've got the technology now, as I mentioned, the world is on our phones. You can you can have your village, you can connect across background and boundary and be talking to them via WhatsApp. And so that's kind of what I wanted to really put forth to the audience, is that it's the people that you meet when you go places. And so we filmed, we were probably filming episode 6 when that startup network ran out of money and went dark. They went out of business. So we were a cart with no horse. And we ended up, through a series of conversations with other people in the travel media space, connecting with my girl, Michaela Malozzi, who has a show on PBS, Bare Feet with Michaela Malozzi. She brought me into the fold. She was like, have you ever considered public television? And I hadn't. And so she kind of connected me with some folks. And from there, that's how we ended up with my presenting station, Northern California Public Media. And a few years later, we still had to raise more money, but that was how we ended up on public television. So it definitely was a journey. I had to learn how to run a business.
Sure.
I was an educator and a journalist, and I knew nothing about a spreadsheet. Who's she? And so I had to, is that the kind you tuck, the corners have elastic? What, spreadsheet? And so I had to learn all that.
I'm laughing my ass off. That's so funny.
Saying,
that's so real and so funny.
Again, completely different than what I had envisioned, but I will tell you, would not change it for the world. I have zero regrets, because honestly, what it did was it took me right back to doing what I love doing, which is writing. And instead of writing the novel that I thought I was going to write, I have had short stories published in literary magazines that were developing into scripted series. Right. So I had always envisioned things cinematically anyway. Right. And it doesn't mean I won't write novels, but fiction is really like storytelling and love stories. That's where my true heart lies. But travel allowed me to kind of do some of that, to love the life that I live, to create the romance of life for people. And that connects me back to the love stories that I love to tell. And so it's just one facet of the diamond. I've got my production company here again, where we're working on other projects that center, BIPOC, LGBTQ plus and over 60 senior elder narratives. Fly Brothers just one production. But that started it off. That's kind of, and it also leverages my ability to operate in front of and behind the camera. And that's kind of also, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of bandwidth and energy to be able to do both. But, I've been gifted with both. And so therefore, that also gives me the ability to kind of tell the stories that I want to tell versus being told what stories I can tell.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Presidio, which is your production company, in a bit. Back to Fly Brother, you've traveled all over the world. I think you've traveled to countries including Colombia, Brazil, South Africa, Germany. Let me see, how should I put this? Which locale has impacted you the most? Which locale, if there is one, that is nearest and dearest to your heart, and why?
Oh, man. I can't really say one. Okay. South Africa almost always is in the lead in terms of having had a deep soul connection there, a very deep love connection in South Africa. And I spent a lot of incredible moments there. And so, yeah, but right now I'm in Canada. I'm in Vancouver, which is a home space. I've never felt more at home here, and am deeply, deeply in love with my life here. So there's that. Brazil, I lived in Sao Paulo, which is also a peak experience of my life. I had a New York style life when I was there, and it was at a high point in the economy. 2010 to 2012, there was just a lot of optimism and a lot of just amazing things happening. And I was right in the middle of all of it. And those are the top three. But, honestly, I'm from the United States. I'm no patriot, but I will say that, there's a lot in spite of its, history of apartheid. just like South Africa, in spite of its current, ridiculousness, they're still incredible people. That's something that we kind of discovered in filming season 2 of our show, where, throughout the U.S., just really getting into the diversity of the people, of the landscapes, of the experiences, and just thinking like, wow, honestly, no other country allows you to either live under a bridge or be the president. And that's not necessarily like, that's just looking at life from having lived in other countries. I do see a lot of opportunity here in Canada, so don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But at the same time, I mean, the population of Canada is that of the state of California.
Right.
So like there's something to be said for scale. And the U.S. has that. But still, I mean, there are other places that I really, really love deeply. India, Ireland. So yeah, there are many places like Tajikistan. There are many places that have touched my heart repeatedly.
Great. Okay. Let's move to Presidio Pictures, your film, TV, and digital media studio. So that's ambitious. So tell us about that. Give us the 411 about it. Talk to us about it.
Well, before I answer that, actually, I just wanted to tack on something to the last question about countries
sure.
and places. Places are like people. Places are like people, just because I had a deep connection in one place doesn't mean that you have to, doesn't mean that you can't have a deep connection to a place that I didn't really connect with. And so I think it's important for that to be known, for people to go and find what is resonant for them in their life experience. So mine is not prescriptive at all. That's just happened to be the places where I felt the most connected with myself.
Sure.
And reflected back by the place. It's Presidio Pictures. Well, I'm nothing if not ambitious. And I would say that I kind of don't have an excuse. I mean, we had 2 seasons of a travel series appear in the middle of a global health emergency. Right. So I really kind of can't say, oh, that's hard. Oh, that's going to be too much work. Oh, that I kind of shot myself in the foot in that arena. I don't get that excuse. If it's hard, oh well, done harder. So we'll just keep it going. But Presidio Pictures, again, as I mentioned, focuses on stories that have been on the periphery, that have not been centered, which again, people of color, people of divergent sexuality, mostly gay men. So I'll say that because that's my personal experience. The G, I don't know about the other letters. And then there's the stories about, seniors and elders. I mean, again, my mother's 84 years old. My dad's 76. When's the last time you've seen people that age falling in love on film and television, or people's parents who still find new ways to love each other? Like, that's what I'm watching, so there's that too. That definitely is something that is near and dear to my heart. But one of the projects that we are producing is a love story between 2 men of color that we've never seen before. And it involves them having to follow their hearts, in a way that requires trust in the unseen. And so, I think that there's enough sky for every bird. That is not my saying. I got that from Ms. Lola Akinmade, who is from Nigeria. But, there are stories that still haven't been told. There have never been enough Moonlights. There have never been enough, Love Simons. There have never been enough of anything that we've gotten. Even Bros. So, say what you will, or Fire Island. There have never been enough of those. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the types of stories that I'm able to offer something up to, and something that I do consider to be what I would want to watch, which may not be what everybody wants to watch. And that's okay, too.
Well, there's definitely an untapped market for it. So, yeah, I totally get
Well,
that.
And the other thing is in everything I do, be it Fly Brother, be it a short story or a novel or a television series that we're producing, that's not Fly Brother. The idea is that we are giving people an opportunity to have a romantic experience, and I don't mean romance in the sense of just like a coupling. I mean the romance of life, great music, great intimacy, love. Like I want people to feel wrapped up in the story. You know, that's what life is, a story. It's a journey. It's an epic adventure. And I think people don't have enough of the adventure in their lives. They don't have enough of the intrigue. They don't have enough of the romance. And so they get bored and they shoot themselves in the foot with things that they really don't want to be doing, but they don't have, they haven't tapped into that sense of wonder and excitement and uncertainty and even fear. That is used in a way to like propel you through the forest. And Presidio Pictures is named for the Presidio of San Francisco, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. It is this enchanting forest of possibility, of magic. That's what great stories do. And they bring you into that realm. And that's what I try to harness or encapsulate or serve up on a platter with the work that we do.
Well, you know, I think we've got a Vulcan mind meld here because seriously, because I write a series of novels and I tap into a lot of what you just said. So that really affects me. Okay. Okay. Now on your website, Mr. White, you talk about the incomparable magic of travel. So tell us exactly what you mean by that.
Well, it kind of fits right, it dovetails with what I was talking about in terms of just the romance of life. You know, the fact that when you go someplace, you're someplace else. You can be someone new. You can be yourself in a new environment. It gives you the opportunity to create a new story. And okay. I think what other kind of endeavor allows that in the same kind of way? Yes, there's reading, there's going into story and film and television, absolutely. But physically transporting yourself someplace, you're literally shifting into another dimension. We are, and this is how, if you take a plane someplace to a different time zone, you're in another dimension because your body hadn't even caught up yet. You've got jet lag because you're like literally going someplace faster than what the human body was necessarily accustomed to doing. So there's that. But travel doesn't require all of that. Travel can really just be getting out of your comfort zone. I'm using it as an expansive, from an expansive perspective, but it's trying something new. It's trying a cuisine that you haven't tried before. It's speaking to your neighbor when you've not spoken to them ever. It's, listening to music that you're not familiar with and not ridiculing it, but actually being open to seeing how it moves you. That's travel as well. And so I want people to really kind of get into that magic because that's what living is about. And we've been given the tools, the opportunities, the resources. Most of us. Travel is not that expensive. And yes, there are people who don't necessarily have the money to go off on a safari for a week. I get that. But they can go to a park, and maybe talking about that. There may be someone that you can name that, okay, they can't go to a park, but I'm talking to the general population here. If they're watching this podcast, they can go to a park. And there are so many opportunities, so many more opportunities. We've never had greater freedom of movement, even as we watch people try to shut down borders and all that kind of stuff. If you know anything about history, you'll know that the borders were never completely open except to certain groups of people. And, people of color were often not those groups of people to whom the borders were open to in countries like the United States. So just saying, in terms of the opportunities that we have now, it's more of an awareness issue than a resource issue. And I think with the way people are traveling and have traveled over the last, 5 to 10 years, it's much more in people's minds to do that than it was when I started blogging. Back then I only had a few books that I could read, guidebooks. And if I wanted, people who had similar experiences to me traveling, I had to read some good old James Baldwin. And he started traveling in 1949. I started in 1994. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's a huge gap. And I think and this is me as a Black American. You know, there are people who have, let's say, family members in the Caribbean who had experiences, even just going to New York and back to an island or whatever. Like that in your mind already kind of gives you an understanding of travel as something different. But many of us didn't have that experience. We had to kind of cultivate it ourselves based on what was around us. And in my case, I happened to have fertile ground in parents who were educators, but not everybody has that. So it really is an awareness issue more than anything else. And that's what we try and do with, again, everything that we produce. When it comes to the incomparable magic of travel, it's the fact that you can transform yourself with travel as a catalyst.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Well, Mr. White, what do you have on tap for the rest of the year, and how can we follow you on social media?
Well, I would say one of the things that we've got going is our new membership community, Fly Brother and Friends. It's a travel community where people really engage with transforming their lives, where travel intersects with health, wellness, love, relationships, location independence, network and community building, long-term travel, and holistic well-being, entrepreneurship, all areas of life where my life has been transformed through travel. It is a subscription-based service. You can either pay for the entire year or you can pay monthly. And we are growing, and we've got a lot of amazing people, core storytellers that offer courses and one-on-one coaching. We've got trips on deck and some other things. And so people can find out about that at our website, flybrother.net/100. That's one of the links, or just come to flybrother.net. You'll find it. But the group is called Fly Brother and Friends. And again, it's all about, bringing people together to help themselves transform. So that's one of our major initiatives for 2023. And people, again, can follow us on all the social media platforms at Fly Brother. I think it's Fly Brother Fly on Facebook. We do have a YouTube channel. It doesn't have full episodes. I think it's got one full episode, but you can see clips from the promos and other interesting interviews, the Fly Brother radio show. Just come to flybrother.net or .com. We've got both URLs. It took us 10 years to get .com, but we finally snagged that. So it was a company in China that had those words.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had to you just people, why don't you have .com? Why don't you have .com? I mean,
right.
Again, people who only see things from the outside. But that's it's all good. That's how life is. People often are unaware of just the humanity behind some of their favorite brands. And in this case, we've had a lot of humanity in trying to figure out our way, how to best serve our audience and still, make things sustainable, right, for ourselves and profitable. And so that's what we are excited about, is just the journey and the learning how to show up better for everybody else as well as ourselves. So yeah, Fly Brother everywhere on social, and flybrother.net or flybrother.com. You can sign up for our mailing list and find out about what we've got coming down the pipeline, including trips, etc.
Well, Mr. Ernest White, Fly Brother, thank you for stopping by. Wyatt, man, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Wyatt. You are amazing. I really appreciate what you do in terms of just providing a voice for those of us in the community that are creating, in all different areas, from media to psychology to erotica and all the other things that
porn stars.
I was like,
porn stars.
I have a show on public television, Mr. Wyatt Evans, so I'm not gonna screw myself with that, but
that's okay. We got you. Listen, we have to have you back, man, because this has been an absolute delight.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Again, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.
So there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at wyattevans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by over 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. The latest installment is Frenzy! I say it, Frenzy. Its predecessor is Rage. And guess what? Good golly, Miss Molly and April. The new installment, the sequel in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series will be released. It's called Shattered! I say it, Shattered. And I've got this fabulous launch party set, other events, and I'm going to get all of that information to you a little bit later. Now, you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and, my social media is right there, poof, for you to peruse it. And you can drop me a line at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof.